All right, good afternoon.
Hi. Are you going to leave your camera off, Liam, just for quality and things? Is it better
I
for you?
am. I am gonna. Sorry, guys. Yeah, I am gonna leave my camera off just because we've got a lot of people using StreamYard and other sites at the moment, and
Yeah.
I just think you'd all much rather look at Seth than look at me, obviously.
I might disappear if the same thing happens to me. So
Exactly.
for
I
the
just
moment,
assume it. I just assume it will happen, and so don't take my chances.
yeah. Um, do you have the lesson ready, or would you prefer that I share?
Oh, I'm sorry. I don't. I thought you had it. I'm sorry. I'll bring it up.
No, it's no problem. No, I've got it. I've got it.
Oh, sorry.
Just
Okay. Guys, while Seth brings the lesson up because he's much more prepared than I am today, um, I'll just quickly introduce myself. I'm sure by now most of you know who we are, but in case we have any new viewers, go ahead and say that my name is Liam. I am 30 years old and I come from Manchester in the United Kingdom. I have lived in Italy for over 3 years now. And I've worked at this year will be my 2 year anniversary at Mayes Meravigli, in fact. This month, excuse me. This will be my 2 year anniversary this month. So I guess that kind of makes me part of the old guard in a way at Mayes.
I'm right on your heels
I was
in
going to
terms
say,
of that
you
because
too, actually, Seth, if I think about it.
I started in September. Yeah, I started in
Yeah.
September. So um,
I
and
joined just
so
before summer. You joined just after.
yeah. We're starting to have both of our two viewers and two people introducing themselves. Aria, hello, and
Hello.
Maria Appia, nice. Nice
Hello,
to
guys.
see you too. Um, I have also prepared, just as you did, there's my info. So I'm Seth, I'm 37, and I'm from the United States, from Ohio. And I've also been here, I've been here a little over 3.5 years. So you and I have similar numbers.
We do, don't we? We got similar trajectories, don't we?
We do. And hello
Uh,
to Luigi.
Very good. And Aria and Maria Pia. Okay. Maria's just said it. Pia, 26 years old. Ariano Irpino. Steph, do you know where that is?
No. Where exactly are you, Pia?
Yeah, is
Ariano
that?
Irpino. No, I do not know this name.
I don't either. Is that in the north or the south? Aria's saying no. Aria, don't worry. I don't have my camera on. It's normal. Okay, I just turned my camera off to improve the quality of the connection.
And Pia, can you tell us like what province specifically? Because we don't know the name of your town, or what's a city nearby that maybe we would be more familiar with. Ariano Irpino. Oh, we will see. Um, so anyway, so today we have this topic that kind of an interesting. People tend to like to talk about this because we can enter into things with conspiracy theories, government control, such things like this. So, what are we doing today? Let's see here. Let me. So, Big Brother. So, spying on people, surveillance, and then from a grammatical perspective, passive voice. But we'll see how much we get into that. Kind of an interesting thing too, because like Liam was saying before we began, he was saying that this sort of this topic can sort of be connected to the quarantine and coronavirus and potentially the future, some things that we might experience. So a useful lesson, maybe hopefully an interesting talk that we'll have. So.
And Maria's, she's narrowed it down. It's near Avellino.
Yeah,
Okay,
Campania. Thank you.
fantastic. Thank you.
uh, and Naples. Oh, and so Aria also. We have what is
Two
it? Campane? Yeah, two
two Neapolitan,
southern.
well, not Neapolitans, but two, Campan Campanians. I'm not sure actually.
Yeah, I don't know. Is it Campani? I think. I don't know. What do you? I think a Campani is someone from Campania. I think.
Exactly. These guys can tell us, I'm sure.
Yeah, Liam and I like to expand our Italian as well when we can. It's important.
We do. We do. We still want to learn, even while we're under lockdown as well.
Yeah. So,
All right.
I think that this first thing here, there's just some nice thinking about this. So maybe, Liam, how about if you want to read our questions and then I'll make a little banner while you're reading. So
Sure. So, guys, Big Brother is watching. All right. And there's a little bonus point. If anyone can tell me the origin of Big Brother and also that phrase, Big Brother is watching, yucks, if you can tell me where that comes from. And our three questions are, what is surveillance and what types are there? The second question is, how much do you value your privacy? And the third question is, do you ever worry that your communications are being monitored? Okay. So,
big
Seth,
questions.
big question. Absolutely. I know we like to keep it light here, don't we? Okay. So, guys, that first one, we've got first a kind of general question. Okay. What is surveillance? What's an easy, kind of short, one sentence description of surveillance? Who can give us an example of that? Okay, before we talk about the different types of surveillance.
I'm trying to think of just a nice, how would I, in one easy sentence? I tend to go too easy when I do these things, and I and then I sort of miss crucial parts of a word.
Yeah,
But
like I know what you mean. Like I could think of a 2-word definition for it.
yeah,
Watching people.
well, yeah, I'm thinking watching others is what I was thinking. But surveillance is going to add probably. Okay, so Luigi, yeah, I was about to say, Luigi said to control something or someone, and I was going to say that surveillance for me has, and Adia also, control, yeah, has an aspect of um, authority somehow involved rather than just watching.
I also just want
So,
to check, guys, just to be clear, because I know this is a very common false friend. Luigi, do you mean control or check? Okay, because that's, the Italian false
yeah.
friend, controllo, in English is not control, but check. So I think I just want to, because, both these could both be possible, but I know that that's a very common false friend between Italian and English,
Mhm.
to check something. Okay, because to control is more to have power and authority over someone. So you can actively tell them what to do and make them do what you want. Checking on someone would be more like what Seth and I were saying, that thing of watching. So I just want to, sorry, I just wanted to be 100% clear on that one because it's an important one for this discussion.
Yeah. Well, and also because surveillance, when it becomes too much, when privacy or when rights are violated, then surveillance can become
A form of
controlling.
control,
But
absolutely.
yeah, a form of control as a form of maybe like fear or something. But that's when it's pushing beyond just maybe a basic surveillance of a situation, just which is the watching of a situation, the checking exactly.
So let's see. Aria says it certainly also requires us to sacrifice our privacy. So just a little thing there, Aria. Very good example, yeah, but requires us to sacrifice our privacy. And Pia says, so again, Pia, just a little thing about word order. Several types of surveillance exist. So exist would go at the end of that sentence. Several types of exist. Surveillance for air traffic management, surveillance for security, surveillance for checking. So when it's for, we use ing, for checking people. Okay? Yeah, absolutely. There are so many different types, right, Seth?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, yeah. And not all of them. Like, for example, like air traffic, like a control or air traffic management, not a type of surveillance that is really impeding, that's not really, creating any privacy issues necessarily. That's more very much for safety, right? For airplanes to be functioning properly. But and security surveillance in general, like in a bank or something, or like its initial purpose is usually for safety, but it's easy to step over those lines sometimes. So yeah.
Absolutely.
And
Okay.
Adia's starting to move in that direction with her
She
next.
is.
So
I
Adia
was going to
says,
say, she's hit the nail on the head.
yeah, it's a very what do you mean by a topical topic? Can you
Yes.
give a different word? It's a very interesting, a very important, very
I quite like
maybe you
topical topic. I
I do
like
like
that.
it. um, since they
You
want to
could just say,
monitor.
Aria, don't worry,
Mhm,
Aria, you could just say it's very topical.
mhm.
You
It's
don't need
very
topical
topical.
topic. I mean, we like it, but just say it's very topical. It's
Yeah.
good.
Yeah, because they usually means the government. Is it the they is usually the government, isn't it? They want
Yes.
to monitor our movements to prevent, well, and this is, do you want maybe, because I haven't read too much, and it seems like Liam, maybe you've been reading a bit more, but in terms of what you've seen about like with coronavirus and surveillance and maybe some things that might be happening.
You mean so in terms of what Aria's talking
Big
about
questions.
I know. Aria's talking about the monitoring of our movements. Well, for example,
Is like, bam, Adia, you are hitting them right on.
wow, people aren't usually this engaged. Good for you, Aria. Impressive.
Yeah.
Well, okay. Well, first of all, I mean, to this point that Aria is making, certainly in Britain, there is a debate among some people about whether or not we have seen an overreaction from the government in terms of the way the economy has been closed, the way that people have been put under. Essentially, people are under house arrest. Obviously, it's not that, but it feels like that. And in fact, one of our just disappeared for a second. Seth?
No, I just turn off my camera
Oh,
because I'm
sorry.
starting to get some funny.
Okay. Yeah, I was just going to say that one of our former Supreme Court justices gave an interview and has written a couple of newspaper articles saying that this is a classic example of how a society never has its liberty taken away. Societies usually choose to give it away based on fear, like Aria has said.
Mhm.
So
Yeah.
what he said as well was that governments have reacted very aggressively and quickly, more out of public pressure than out of logic or evidence or science.
Mm.
It's one point of view. I don't know, to be honest, whether it's right or wrong. It's a point he makes very well. The guy's name is Jonathan Sumption, or Lord Sumption, as he is. And he's a former Supreme Court justice in the UK, if anybody wants to look it up.
Okay. No, I would agree. In the United States, it's interesting because it's this disease right now is spreading so fast in the United States. It's ridiculous to me. And I'm American, so I look at my country and think, there are some things I don't think have been done well. But I find it interesting that, like my sister, where I'm from the state of Ohio, and
Woo woo!
and
Go
but like
Buckeyes!
yeah, um, but like the states are not allowed to, like it's never been done before, and I think so the country does not want to close borders between states. Um, and so like here in Italy, obviously, and in most, I mean, of course, like the United States is very big, and each state in its could be like a small country, but we don't see ourselves as individual countries at all. There's not that idea of being different countries. Our national identity is American, but people are still moving quite a lot, and
Mm.
and my sister has found it she's the person I talk to the most, but she said she's found it interesting that she doesn't feel like things have really changed. Like like
Okay.
even I was talking to her yesterday, or like I guess that people are taking it seriously. Like she told me yesterday, we were talking, and she said I found it interesting the words that she used, because she said, "Oh yeah, last week I had my week of quarantine." And then I said, "Well, what are you doing this week?" And she's like, "Oh, well, I mean, we're just being careful." And I thought,
Right.
okay, that's very different than from the experience that we are currently in. Um, and especially in the states where things are not, I mean, I don't know, it's spreading very fast, and doesn't seem like people maybe are giving enough concern. But maybe the United States is sort of entering this a little later than Europe and China and such, that maybe they are doing it. I mean, it's a different approach. I mean, at this point, it looks like it's not going to be a good approach, but you know,
I
um,
think, yeah, yeah. I think one thing I found is that a lot of people, because what you were saying, Seth, about the way that America is different. I think a lot of people don't understand or appreciate the different relationship lots of people have to the government in America. There are lots of people who would prefer to live their lives as if there was no federal government. That they don't want any intrusion on their personal or private lives. And I think there's that. I also think there's a misunderstanding about the way the American political system works, because I think people say, well, why can't America just go under lockdown like Britain, like Italy? And I think people don't understand that the president doesn't have that power. The
no.
president legal ability to make every individual state do something like that.
And some states see that more than others. Like the really interesting state in the United States is Montana, where Montana was a state that was founded because of land. Like people went there for land, and when the state formed itself, um, there are lots of rules about your land, and like you're allowed to kill people if they come on your land. You can shoot them. They're on your land, and there's laws. Like, I mean, obviously, if someone is just drops their keys in your yard and you go outside and shoot them, okay, no. But people have huge farms, and you see people and you don't know who they are, and I mean, obviously, if you would hopefully do this in the proper way, but say, like, yelling at, who are you, what are you doing here, and you can shoot them. And this is not to say that Americans run around shooting people. I should also say this: my dad has 40 guns in our house, and they are in a locked cabinet. And
40
that's
as in
another
40, 40.
40. He is a gun collector, and he has. I think most of them don't work because they're like from World War II and stuff. Like, they're old guns. He
Okay, so some of them are
appreciates
like
them.
antiques.
But yeah, we have a gun rack, a gun. It's a case with guns, and it's locked most of the time. But I'm taking this to a whole different place. But but like but what I was saying with Montana, though, is like Montana, like the government cannot tell you to do a lot of things legally. The government cannot tell you, even like during a natural disaster. In my state, the state could tell me, Ohio could tell me to like evacuate my home, to leave. And in Montana, the government is not allowed to do that. They can recommend it, but they have no right to tell you where to go. And if you die, like if there's a fire or something and the government says, we really think you should leave, you don't have to in Montana. If you die, the government is not at fault. You are, because but you don't, in Ohio, if the government tells me to leave and I don't, then I can get in trouble because the government has mandated it. So there are very big differences across states, which creates then different reactions to this virus. Like my sister has said, she finds it very interesting that, at stores, and also like what stores have been considered basic services, you know?
Yeah.
So Starbucks is still open in Ohio, basic service. So
Essential service.
yeah, so like she lives in a very rural county, a very rural part of of Ohio, and so there are stores that often are called like farm supply stores. So these are things that farmers do, and they offer things that in general people like you and I we don't need, like
No,
fencing
exactly.
and but people who have a farm might need certain tools, and they might need them like now because their animals will die or something. So those stores are open, but in general, they aren't highly trafficked stores because they're very particular. Um, but yeah, she said at the grocery store, you see moms with all their kids and their whole family, and she's like, just send dad to the store. Like, why is everyone going everywhere?
Yes. We got a lot of comments here.
Yeah.
Interesting point here. She says, I think that there are a lot of types of surveillance, but there are two main kinds: ordinary and secret. The first is for is to keep order in general.
Mm-hmm.
I think Maria there is probably talking about things like what we call in English, for example, CCTV television. So those are the things like security cameras, for example.
Yeah.
That means that you can see that's kind of open surveillance. But then she goes on to say the second one concerns our privacy and our freedom. So
Mm-hmm.
maybe think of, for example, what we call sometimes in English phone. Okay, now phone tap is when someone uses technology to listen to your phone calls, or also like to read your messages. Okay, that's known as phone tapping. Seth, do you want to read this one from Aria?
Yeah. So Aria says, it's creepy how the same script is repeated in every state, in every country. Underestimation and almost mocking. Then
Ooh,
it
very
is,
nice.
yeah, and then it said that the disease attacks only the elderly, and then it gets worse and worse. Yeah. In my country, there are a lot of kids because high school kids, younger kids they're not paying any attention at all, and a lot of kids are getting it because they're not being careful at all. It is creepy though. I mean, well, and it's true that the countries haven't seemed to learn from each other
No, exactly.
as it's gone from one to the next. But um, at this point, even things like the numbers of who has it and such, um, I don't really pay much attention to those because, well, like in my country, and this again from many friends, like there aren't enough tests, so there are certainly many more people who have this disease, but they haven't been tested. So then, and that number is it's not an invented number, but I mean, in a certain sense, it is. I mean, it's
Yeah.
so, and like when you look at countries like some of the African nations that certainly don't have the resources to to test in the way that a first world nation would. I'm sure that things are might be much worse than what we see on a map.
Yes.
create like the John Hopkins map, which is a really cool resource. But at this point, those numbers are
They're
suggestion.
soft, as we would
Yeah,
say. Yeah, we would say that when you don't know the exact number of something in English, you can say it's a soft number.
yeah,
And Aria goes on to say as well, each country reacted differently based on its culture and the skills of their leaders. However, this disaster has also opened our eyes to international relations.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I think it's showed a lot of people how important, cooperation between countries can be,
yeah.
and how these big international institutions rely on international cooperation. And I think you're right, Ari. I think that is very, very important.
Mm.
Um, and yeah, I mean, that second question. I mean, this is good. We're not even past the first slide, and we're keeping the conversation going, just because I think it's very interesting for people. That question of how much you value your privacy is a really interesting one now, because at this time when we are all very concerned about the virus and how the lockdown is going to end and things like that, I think that a lot of people would be, I think, prepared to give up some of their personal information, their health information, if it meant we could all, for example, go outside again.
Mm.
I'd love to know what the students all think, but that's what happened in South Korea, is that basically, and in China as well, to a lesser extent in South Korea, but that basically, the government can monitor you with your phone and send everybody information about,
Mm.
what to do next. Here's what's going to happen, etc., etc. And yeah, I just wonder how many would people be really okay with that?
It's a hard thing because, like, I know that I have a very weird relationship with like even with my phone in terms of that. Like my Google, I use Google Maps, like, but I have everything turned off. I don't feel like it's necessary for me to share those things, and it's not that I'm afraid because I'm not. For me, it has more to do with just less complications in my life. I don't know. It's just like one less thing to have to think about, um but it could be worrying about, I mean, and these, but the weird thing is, like, technology is not going to stop. These things are going to continue developing, but it's kind of like earlier, I don't remember who said it, but about like the concessions we make now, I think we do have to be careful about um how like they're developed,
Yeah,
so like right
I
now
think that was
we're
Aria. Yeah, Aria was
yeah.
saying what we give up now, we may regret in the future.
Yeah, so it's a matter of being careful as it and recognizing that in a very special moment like this, very strange, that hopefully isn't a norm, or doesn't become a normal thing. I read a story about that there were some scientists who just as a sort of theorized, hypothesized that like quarantine period might become a phase of life. Like, oh, you guys, coronavirus is coming back to the government. We're in. Like it might become a seasonal thing, just like the seasonal flu. We might have seasonal quarantines, which to me is horrible. but
I saw that too.
but like yeah, because there's a moment of fear, you can't give away too much. It's just, I guess it's just going slowly and being smart with it. And like you said though, but if we freak out too much, like if a country overreacts or if the world overreacts, we might give more than we need. And it could
Exactly.
impact
Yeah, I absolutely agree. Francesca's joined the conversation. She says, I think when we accept, so accept is with the gerund, Francesca. So we say, I think when we accept being on social media such as Facebook, we accept that our privacy could be violated.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's true. Yeah, I mean, Francesca, I don't have anything to add to that except to say that I agree that. But I think the problem, though, is a lot of people don't really think about that. I think a lot of people
Mm-hmm.
don't realize the deal that they make, the agreement that they enter into when they sign up to these companies.
Yeah. Yeah.
Uh,
It's very Interesting.
It is. I was going to say, Seth, because we've talked about this a lot. If there's, we should move on to look at a little bit of vocabulary.
Mm-hmm. Sure.
Just while you bring that up.
That's me. Sorry.
Yes, sorry. And just while you bring that up, I just want to highlight what Arya said. It's difficult to trace the boundary of how far you can go in terms of privacy. Already, the phone's track difficult. Absolutely. Very true.
Yeah.
Okay, guys. So we've got some kind of surveillance vocab here. We have 7 words, and the definitions are on the right. And we would love it if you guys could, if you think there are 7 of them, so if you could kind of number, like give us the word and then the number of the definition. Okay. So, you know, for example, if you say espionage 2, espionage, using spies to gain information. Okay, that would, so, you know, if you wanted to write, I'll just do this one as an e.g. Example. Okay, and you would put espionage 2, like that, just so that we're clear about which one you're explaining to us.
Maybe maybe while we wait for people to start sending their answers, I hope my screen just looked really funky here. I'm hoping that people at home can see the screen properly.
No, sorry, mine's scrambled as well.
Yes, usually this fixes itself with time. I just took it away for a moment. I'll put it back up, but
sure.
Aria's comment about the phone, how our phones track us, made me think of just recently. Maybe you heard about this, Liam. I know that you'll enjoy this, but there was a performance artist who I think most of his artwork has to do with the idea of privacy, or you know, the information being used, things like this. And so as a sort of as a performance art piece, he took a wagon. Oh shoot!
Okay.
Did I just disappear? No. Sorry. He took a wagon, and he was German, and so somewhere in Germany, in a big city, he took a wagon and filled it with phones that were all turned on, and then he drove out into the middle of nowhere and walked down little streets of a little village in Germany and created on Google and on like apps that track the traffic. He created a traffic jam, a virtual traffic jam, because Google said there are too many people on this road because it was reading the phones.
It was reading everyone's phone.
Yeah, so Google placed like 300 phones in a little tiny village and said that's too many people on that road. But in fact, it was a man just having a coffee in a coffee shop with
that's
a
very clever.
It was.
That's very clever. I like that. Very amusing.
But it even caused us some trouble of like different offices, like government office. You know, nothing massive or anything. It was just his message, though, that you know, that even the information you receive is I don't know if biased is the right word to use, but the information you receive, it's not. It's just computers reading things. Yeah, it's just you know, anyone could do this. You know, that's like when you go to Esselunga and you want to see how long the wait is. It's just Google who's reading the phones that are inside of Esselunga. You know, so it's a kind of interesting thing.
It is interesting. No, I'll check out that video. Absolutely. We've already got some in. Francesca says that monitor is 3. Pia, I don't quite understand what. Wait, are you saying that like number 3 eavesdrop is number 7 secretly listen? I think is what Pia means. So she's numbering
monitor
both.
Though is interesting. Yeah, because Francesca is thinking of monitor, I think. Is this the verb or the noun?
Sorry, wait, no, it's in this. Do you mean in her example or our example?
In our example, yeah. In our activity, is
It's a
monitor
verb.
the verb or the noun? It's the
It's a
verb.
verb. To monitor.
Yeah. So Francesca's answer is maybe not correct. That monitor is 3. A monitor as a noun is like a screen, basically. It's a monitor is something you can look at.
Yeah. It feels very old to
But
say now, but it's like the old computers, the original computers.
yeah, the monitor as a verb, to monitor someone is to watch them, to observe and track. So Google
Yes,
monitors our phones.
exactly. Yeah, I was going
Um,
to say that's the perfect example.
yeah, so that's just kind of an interesting thing, though, that the monitor, Francesca wrote monitor 3, so a device that allows you to listen. And a monitor as a device does allow you to listen to someone's conversation, but it's also a verb. So it can be both.
That's right. Very good. Yeah, it's a good distinction though to be aware of.
Mm-hmm. And nowadays, like you
Okay,
said,
guys.
Liam, we probably use screen. Screen is much more common.
Yes, exactly. Maria, sorry, Pia says eavesdrop is number 7. So eavesdrop, to secretly listen to a conversation. And you're absolutely right, Pia. Yeah, to eavesdrop. Exactly. It's a really good expression. But we don't always use that in kind of surveillance and spying. Eavesdropping could be if you're in a restaurant and the table next to you is having what sounds like a very interesting conversation, and you just try and you try and surreptitiously listen to what they're saying. That's to eavesdrop as well.
Yeah, it doesn't always have to be very, very
Sinister.
negative. I mean,
Yeah.
yeah, it doesn't have to be with a bad intention. So, um,
Maria Pia also says wiretap is 3. So wiretap, a device that allows you to listen to someone's conversation.
yeah, yeah,
Well
yeah.
done, Pia. Fantastic. And Francesca she's given us a lot here. She says that bug is 5. That's to conceal surveillance equipment inside something. And she says that
Yeah.
spy is number 1, a person who secretly collects information. That's
Mm-hmm.
very well done. Very well done,
Well,
Francesca. And Pia. Pia got that one as well.
can yeah, my is it going? I'm having technical difficulties on my end. There they go.
There we go. Okay, yeah. And as you say, guys, yeah, a spy, a GPS, a system that tracks location. Yeah, GPS is an abbreviation, and it stands for Global Positioning System. Okay, just in case you wanted to know what those
Mm-hmm.
represented, it's an abbreviation for Global Positioning System.
Yeah.
All
I
right.
always think, and it's kind of an interesting, if just for you guys, the eavesdrop is kind of a strange word, and I think if you understand what these words mean, because it's a compound noun, it helps you understand where the word comes from. And the eave, the first part of that word, and eave is part of your house, a part of a building. It's the part of a building that sort of if that hangs over up above. So if it were raining, if you went under the eave, the rain would not hit you. Um, and so an eavesdropper, I just looked up the etymology of this word. And so the people who were spies, maybe in the past, or who wanted information, would they would go out in the rain and they would stand close to a window and they could say, "Oh, well, it's raining, so I'm just hiding from the rain." But in fact, they were trying to listen. so, so they became eavesdroppers because they were trying to pick up drops, the water, the words from, but they were standing underneath the eaves of the buildings to try and so they could have an excuse. They could say, "I'm hiding from the rain," but in fact, they were trying to listen in on conversations that they were not a part of. So it's kind of an interesting word.
It's a great word.
All right.
Maria has a good question. The difference between wiretap and bug. Well, I would say the basic difference, Maria, is that wiretap is a noun and bug is a verb. So you can install a wiretap or you can bug a phone. But even bug can also be a verb. So you can say, for example, someone bugged my phone. You can say someone put a bug in my house. Okay.
Yeah. I would say that might come down to a level of like colloquial speaking
and formality.
Like yeah. In a courtroom, if indeed this was happening in a courtroom, they would say the phone was tapped. There was a wire tap, but colloquially, you might say, "I think my house is bugged." So it comes down a little bit to that as well. But I would agree with you as well.
And even wiretap and tap, again, noun and verb. You know, if you say this is an illegal wiretap, you've got the noun, and then, you know, someone illegally tapped, then tap becomes the verb. So again, it just depends how you want to use it. But I think what Seth is right. What Seth said is also very true, that it's a level of formality. Bug is more colloquial, informal. Wiretap and tap is that legalistic vocabulary.
Yeah, and bug even we can bug in general, because bug, you know, comes from the idea of an insect. So bug and insect are the same, and a bug is something we don't want around. We don't like them. And bug we even use when we're sick. If you're a little bit sick, you could say, "Oh, I've got a bug," and it means I'm a little sick. Or even with your computer, if your phone isn't working well, you can say, "Oh, there's a problem with my phone," or my phone's got a bug. And this is not referring to the wiretap. It's just saying there's a problem. So bug gets used in lots of ways. And from context, we will
and it also
understand.
means, and also that thing of an insect can also be about someone irritating you. You know, because again, like an insect that's buzzing around you, kind of irritating you like a mosquito. And you would say, "Oh, stop," you know, you can say to a person, "Stop bugging me." Yeah, exactly.
I'm just writing some examples.
Don't bug me, don't bother me. Exactly.
Yeah. That person, you know, if you're on the bus and someone is, I don't know, for me, something that bugs me on the bus is when someone's on their phone and they're talking very, very loudly. And I think, I don't need to know everything happening in your life. You're talking so loudly. That person is bugging me. That person is bothering me. So in that case, it's just functioning as to bother. And so bug can be lots of things, but in general, it's the idea of a problem, something that we don't want to have. Cool.
Absolutely. So guys, this final exercise, we've only got a few minutes left, and I don't know if we'll maybe have enough time for everybody to get their answers in. I don't know, Seth, like, what's the best way of doing this one?
You know, maybe we can just start reading it, and you guys at home, don't worry about answering because we don't have time. But I don't know, like maybe I can start reading it, and Liam, you can say the word, and everyone. Oh, Maria Pia just did it.
Pia's already. And Francesca. Well, very impressive.
All right. I'll start reading, and then maybe you can give us the words that they've used. Okay.
Okay, sure.
All right, here we go. So, spying and surveillance, sometimes also called
Espionage.
Are as old as civilization itself. Most often, surveillance occurred as a means to gather and collect
Information.
information and to
Monitor.
monitor the. So here I see some differences from what you guys have written at home, but that's okay. Monitor the actions of other people. Originally, it was conducted through the use of individual
Spies.
spies, plural.
Yeah, because it's the plural form
Stole
here.
information. Yeah, who stole information or
Eavesdropped.
eavesdropped. As technology developed, surveillance techniques changed to include things like.
I think it's wiretapping or bugging.
Yeah,
Probably
wiretapping
wiretapping
phones.
for
Yeah,
phones, I think. Yeah,
maybe
and
the
then
next one,
bugging
bugging.
computers.
There we go. Yeah. And even tracking their movements with. We have one left.
GPS.
There we go.
Awesome.
I was
Well
just gonna
done,
say
guys.
because
Very
both of
good.
them. Yeah, the tiny thing that we're all finished to help them out because you guys are doing monitor. A lot of these verbs mean the same thing, and we can use different. Like here, for example, we could do because both of you guys wrote spy for number 3. To spy on is a phrasal verb that would mean monitor, and so we could use that here. And to spy on the actions of others. So just so you know, phrasal verbs, yay!
We love a
um,
phrasal verb.
but
Okay, guys. Sorry, that's all we've got time for today, I'm afraid.
yeah, thank you guys for very active conversation. It was really nice.
It
Interesting
was really
topic.
interesting. Yeah, fantastic. Very. Also, Seth. Also, I noticed just the kind of the level of English and the sophistication of the way people were expressing themselves was really
Yeah,
impressive.
really good, you guys. Really nice. Really nice. So, well, now I'm off to have lunch and to think about how I am being observed and watched and spied on by others.
Very good. I'll be having that an hour later because I have another lesson.
Nice. All right. Well,
All
see
right,
all of
guys.
you guys, and
Thanks a
have
lot,
a good
guys.
day.
Have a great
Bye bye.
weekend.
Bye.
Bye.